All right, everybody, how's it going? I hope you're enjoying the session so far that we've been doing. Next, we're going to be talking with Raul Sood, who is the founder of MechaFightClub and Irreverent Labs. Raul's actually been incredibly active in the Web3 space for a number of years, and this is his latest endeavor. So I'm not gonna ruin the introduction. I'm gonna let him intro himself because he has a good here background, and we've had the pleasure of interviewing Raul on several occasions for our in-person events and virtual. Make sure that you are following him, and feel free to start asking your questions on the right-hand side, and we'll do our best to get to those. So with that, Raul, I'd love if you could introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, hi, I'm Raul Sood, and I am the co-founder of Irreverent Labs, as Jonathan said. And I have been a long-time gamer, entrepreneur. So I've been playing video games forever, and I've been involved in multiple companies, in gaming. My partner and I were the co-creators of Microsoft Ventures. So we worked at Microsoft for a few years, started Microsoft Ventures. After that, I had started Unicorn, which was became the largest esports betting company in the world. And we recently got acquired by Entain. Along the way, I've had a couple of companies in the space in gaming. That one sold to HP. Another AR/VR company called Vervana was acquired by Apple in 2017. And I'm also a very early investor and builder on blockchain. We actually at Unicorn, we invested in Zedrun very early when they started, which is a horse racing game on blockchain. So just generally speaking, I'm like a big believer in blockchain gaming. And I'm very bullish on the space and the future of the space, even though there's a high amount of speculation that's going on right now, and the markets are sort of like, they're kind of up and down, or they're very volatile. But there is a real need for this in gaming, and I'm convinced that this is the future of what we're building. So yeah.
It's great. Thanks for sharing that background, and I'm glad that you shared with us that you had one of the first investments into Zedrun, and can you tell us a little bit about the mechanics of Zedrun, and then also talk about the mechanics of Mecha, right? And like how I'm assuming that maybe some of the things that you learned there kind of helped influence how you thought about Mecha.
Yeah. So Zedrun is a horse racing on the blockchain entertainment experience, if you will. So people buy people watch horse racing all over the world. In Zedrun, people buy these horses that are in sort of unique horses. They have unique attributes, unique bloodlines, and colors and that sort of thing. And they buy these horses. They can race them. They race them on these sort of futuristic racetracks. They breed them. They can trade them, and soon they're building a really deep sort of earning model to it, where they're tokenizing their whole economy. Zedrun is interesting because they were one of the pioneers in the space, and they sort of built on this whole idea of breeding and in-game asset ownership and things like that. And so they've sort of paved the way, and we've learned quite a bit from their experiences. They've also completely blown up over the last few years. Like there was just to give you some perspective, between Zedrun and Axie Infinity, these are two really interesting stories. These games basically were sort of struggling along in 2018. And very few people would invest in them, kind of thing. They started to sort of gain a little bit of traction, and then by 2020 they were sort of gaining a bit of traction. But to give you an idea, I mean, these guys like Zed in particular couldn't raise more money in 2019, and they were they're running out of capital. They ended up raising $1 million through a friend of mine who runs an exchange, and like an $8 million valuation. And I think now they're probably worth somewhere in the range of $750 million now. So, yeah, that's just one example. Axie Infinity is an interesting one. I think by January 2020, they hit around $100,000 in revenue. And actually, was it 2020? No, 2021. 2021, $100,000 in revenue in January. And then by like October, November, they ended up raising 500 million at a $3.5 billion valuation. They had created like a multi-billion dollar economy, which is insane for a game. And like I would say that it's definitely an interesting game. It's a bit of a grind for me. Like I don't find it super fun. Not to say that other people don't. Lots of people do. But I believe that games should be fun, entertaining, shareable. Like I'm really deep into esports, and I know what makes a really great esport. I believe a game should be fun first, and a byproduct of that should be this whole idea of earning. If you can earn.
Yeah, and just to level set real quick for everybody, could you just tell us what does play to earn mean in this gaming context for those that might not be familiar with that?
Yeah, so the idea of play to earn is sort of like as you play the game, you kind of like you earn. You basically get rewards out of the game as you're going. Because a lot of people spend like hours a day playing games and they really get nothing out of it. Like for example, I like League of Legends. I play the game. The only thing I get out of it is kind of like that entertainment experience, which quite honestly is like a short-term entertainment experience that really keeps me from doing probably more productive things, if you will. Like I'm not working when I'm playing the game. I'm certainly not exercising when I'm playing the game. And I'm not owning anything when I'm playing it. You know what I'm saying? Like like if I play League of Legends, I pick a character that I want to play, whether it's Teemo or Master Yi or something. I have no ownership over those characters or the skins that I buy. I really have no attachment to the game whatsoever, other than the fact that I like to play it. So, play to earn is sort of the idea of it's like with blockchain, you can have ownership and you can earn as you go. You can earn rewards, and some of these games are sort of building these multi-tiered economies where people all over the world play these games and kind of quit their jobs and earn a living playing them, which is interesting. But if you kind of like look at the economies of some of these games, they're pretty close. And I don't want to say they are, but they're definitely close to, like, they resemble a Ponzi scheme in many ways, where if the user growth stagnates, the economy can fall apart. So how do you address that? So my partner and I, when we started this business, we really put lots of deep thinking into that, into how do we deal with this idea of stagnation, user growth, that sort of thing. And we modeled out 100-year economy, which is why we always say Irreverent Labs is building these 100-year entertainment experiences. So we put some really deep thought into, an economy that would last 100 years and what it would look like and how we can sustain that economy in case user growth stagnates. It's super.
Yeah, I'm sure, with you being in gaming for so long, Unicorn, Zedrun, and all these, how you saw the play to earn model, not essentially doing what you think it should do. Yeah, tell us more about Mecha and how you all came to think through that.
Yeah, so MechaFightClub is a really funny game. It's hilarious. It's kind of like the dumbest idea I've ever had. I worked on it with my son, who was 18 at the time, just to give you an idea of where much of the humor came from at the beginning. And it's sort of evolved into something much bigger than what it is. But it really was sort of like this dumb idea. It's one of those ideas that you have that you're never going to launch. And as I started to have some conversations with some friends, including the one that invested in Zedrun, and he loved the idea, and I was like, whoa, you actually like this idea? Okay, let's get into deeper on what this could look like. But essentially, it's a fighting game based in the future where aliens landed on Earth in the year 2060. They came here because they felt that Earthlings were ready to share technology with other planets around the galaxy, right? And they left a week later because they realized we're just a bunch of idiots, and we don't want to share, technology. We can't possibly share technology. They just left. But when they left behind 41,000 eggs. And these eggs are like, they're not just eggs. They're like beautiful, crazy looking eggs that they left behind. And over the years, like we built this really deep lore in this game. Part of our game is not just the insane artwork that we're doing, but it's the storytelling that we do. So we built this really deep lore where, over the years, these eggs start to hatch and these evil corporations take the hatchlings and they use it to enslave the human population. And then a few years later, around the year 2140, there was this resistance set up, it's uprising, and this resistance basically liberated Las Vegas, and they found 6,969 eggs, and they reprogrammed the eggs so that when they hatch, they fight each other in these hilarious, mecha cockfighting battles. Because what hatches from the eggs are literally robotic roosters and hens. They hatch. They've got all unique. There's unique colors. There's unique bionics. Each rooster and hen have 5 different bionics on them. They're made out of different materials. They have unique abilities. But what makes this game super interesting and super different from any other game out there is every single character in this game is an artificially intelligent NPC living on the blockchain as an NFT. So they're all artificially intelligent, which is where David came in, my partner. He envisioned this whole idea where we hire these machine learning guys from Microsoft Cyber Defense, and we start building out this game where every character sort of gets smarter over time. And we're using AI in like multiple different ways in this game, not just in the creation process, but like in how they fight. We use something called agent simulation AI, where they sort of they learn how to fight, how to stay in the octagon. They kind of get better over time. But then we also use AI, because the problem with agent simulation is you don't really get personality, if you will. So it's sort of like a boring robot, So we wanted to give them personality. So we actually used we used chicken DNA. It's going to sound like, it sounds ridiculous, but we actually used chicken DNA to create an AI personality. We actually took 2 chromosomes from the Gallus chicken, and it's a public database, and we basically grabbed it, and it's a public data set, and we grabbed it and we used that to kind of to come up with like unique personalities for these birds. So what happens is users will end up buying these eggs. And these eggs come with a provenance card, which is like a trading card that shows the entire history of the egg. And then there's a countdown to the hatching. The hatching event happens where all the birds hatch at the same time. And when they hatch, you get like kind of roosters and hens that hatch out of these things. Hens are about 40% of the population. Roosters are 60%. You get to see your bird hatch. You get to see the colors, the bionics, and the name, because they pick their name out of a hat. So, Jonathan, you might end up with like Robocock, and I might end up with Oprah Henfrey. We don't know, right, until it happens. And almost immediately after they hatch, they start fighting. So it is a ridiculous kind of silly game. The humor is definitely something that if you don't have a sense of humor, you shouldn't be here in the game. That's why we call ourselves Irreverent Labs. Like we really don't want people to take us seriously. We want people to embrace the humor in this, realize that it is a cockfighting game, robotic cockfighting game. So it's a cruelty-free cockfighting game based in the future. They fight in the octagon. They have amateur fights in the cockpit. You can go to a bar and you can use the AR app to literally have a bar fight in the middle of a bar using AR with your cocker hand. The breeding game is hilarious. This whole world is really funny. Every few months they have a Royal Rumble event it's called the Apocalypse. And the community is kind of running with it. Like they're coming up with their own jokes, their own names, their suggestions. We announced this game about a month ago now, maybe a little longer than a month, and we have nearly 20,000 actual users in our Discord, and it's just growing organically. We're not spending any money on marketing. We're not asking people to whitelist us. We're not doing NFT this and NFT that. We're really focusing on the game and the concept of ownership in the game. It's pretty.
No, I love that. it's super clear that you've thought, you and your team have just thought through all the ins and outs and the backstories and how this works. And I can see when you say like, hey, you're thinking about how this lives for, you said 100 years, right? Yeah, right out the gate. That's fantastic. And, because you've been so, relevant in this space and building in this space for so long, I want you to kind of touch on what you just said a moment ago, right? Like this isn't, you're really focused on the game. You're not thinking about this from like an NFT drop per se. And like, what does that mean for someone that doesn't understand what you're saying there? Like break that down a little bit further for them, how you're thinking about this from a business, from a game, aspect of it.
Yeah, so look, as a gamer who plays lots of games, I truly believe in ownership. I kind of alluded on it earlier when I talked about League of Legends. I believe in the idea of if I can own my character and build it over time and it gets smarter over time, that's really an asset that I'm building, and I'm building a bond with that character. That's the key here, is that you're building an emotional bond with your character over time. And if you build an emotional bond with a character and like a big publisher owns that, that's kind of dumb, right? Like, especially if you've done it over time and your bot is earning in the game. So these chickens earn Bok in the game, which is this token that's minted on proof of play. We don't keep a treasury of them. We're not going to sell them. We're definitely not going to do a token sale. I've been through that before. It's a nightmare scenario in the U.S. Only because it doesn't matter how good you are and how legit you do things. Unfortunately, if a regulator decides that they want to make an example out of you, they will, and they have. I've been through the situation in the past, and it was a shitty 2 years of my life, but thank goodness the company survived and we were able to keep building. And it didn't deter me from staying in the space as a sort of a pioneer and a creator in the space. Like, no regulator is going to keep us down. We got to keep going. We got to keep, because this is the future of gaming. I firmly believe that. And yeah, so I mean, the idea that I guess the fundamental idea of this game is we want players to build an emotional bond with their characters, like Tamagotchi on crack. And we want them to have, like a multi-year experience with this game until one day, if they decide, hey, listen, I'm going to either pass this on to my kids or I'm just going to move on from this game. They could trade their character if they want, on open marketplaces. That's up to them.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting how you've been thinking about that. I want
to. Sorry, there's one thing though. There's one thing I want to say, because there's a number of other, so when you ask about the fundamental difference between what we're doing and what others are doing, there's other projects, if you will, where people drop these NFTs and they say, oh, I'm having my NFT drop, and if you buy this, you're going to get utility down the road. The idea of utility to me is just such a bad word, and the only reason they're using it is because they think that if they have utility, it's not a security, right? That's absolute bullshit. Because if the SEC says you're a security, they're going to come after you no matter what, and they're going to just drain. Even if you're legally in the right, which I know for a fact, right? If you're legally in the right, they're still going to keep inquiring, and you're still going to be spending money on lawyers, and it's just a drain suck. It doesn't make sense. Right. So in a game, you don't want utility, right? You want to have fun. You don't care about utility. You care about fun. You want to have fun playing the game first and foremost. And secondly, a lot of these projects, what they'll do is they'll do an NFT drop and they'll make a ton of money, and then they'll promise a game or some roadmap down the road, which is effectively a security at the end of the day, because you're promising something in the future that you can't deliver today. Doesn't matter if these things are all unique, because they're technically not unique if it's just like an NFT that they all basically look alike, and you can't, if you close your eyes and open your eyes, they all basically look the same to you. That's why, for us, we're building actually unique characters between the graphics, then the depth that goes into the character and the AI. These characters will be unique, and they are unique. And we're also not going to launch the NFTs until the game is ready to play, until they're ready to fight, which we're getting very close to that. Like I mean, we were thinking about March timeframe. I'm ready to, to kind of I want to make it perfect. So we have no problem delaying it. It's not an issue. We're not looking for money. We're not trying to raise off of a community or anything like that, right? We want to make the game ready so that when people buy their characters, they're ready to play.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. There's definitely been a lot of NFT projects that basically say like, hey, Yeah, once we maybe have enough money, we'll figure out a game for you, and then we're a gaming company. And yeah, that's not a gaming company. Real quick, just from those listening, I want to ask you all, have any of you played play to earn? What's your play to earn games that you like? We're going to be talking with Raul for here a little bit longer, and we're going to start inviting people to ask questions. So if you have questions for Raul as well, feel free to start putting them in the side there.
By the way,
Yeah.
I want to mention though, there's people in the community that tried to get on and they can't because they have to register. And
we just took off that block, so if they're still they
Okay.
should be able to. Yeah, if you want to message them, we took off that block that they don't have to register, so hopefully they can try again.
Okay.
Raul, so we were, when you and I talked on the phone the other day, we were talking about brands, right? And, how can brands start thinking about the metaverse? How can brands start thinking about play to earn games? How can brands start thinking about partnering with, someone like Mecha or Bored Ape or a different project or, and actually not even Bored Ape, again, in the gaming context, how can brands start thinking about where they live and what they should be doing, assets, participation, etc.
So brands need to think about, first of all, why do they want to participate in this world, right? Like what is metaverse and what exactly are they participating in, that sort of thing. They have to have a fundamental thesis as to why they want to do it. There's ways that you can do it and be relevant, and there's ways that you can do it that just doesn't make sense. The way I see it is NFTs are even though we're in a bubble, there's no question that 97% of the projects out there are going to fail, and they're going to fail miserably, and people are going to be speculating on it, and it's really driven by speculators and this culture of speculation and making money. It's terrible, right? So like probably like 97% or more will fail. But over time, the real ones will continue to grow and develop and be better and that sort of thing. So as a brand, if you think about participating in the space, you need to think about what does the future of NFTs look like. NFTs are basically a means for creators to participate in this Web3 economy in a world where, if you think about like the last industrial revolution was built by bricklayers and laborers essentially, right? And they didn't get to participate in the upside of building New York, for example. But this new industrial revolution that's happening in the metaverse or happening online is about creators, artists, musicians, engineers coming together and building this world where people are spending a lot of time online, but also in when you talk about metaverse and like AR experiences and stuff, people will be walking around using AR and having blended experiences with real world and not, right? Like Pokemon, type game where you can drive people to go to see shops and have AR experiences or virtual experiences inside of their shops and that sort of thing. So to me, there's a convergence of artists, creators, musicians, all types of people coming together in the form of gaming and entertainment. And I think that this is where projects like MechaFightClub will be massive, because we're effectively creating an entertaining game that people are going to love and play, and we're not doing a monolithic game. And what I mean by that is we're not doing like a full-on Call of Duty with multiple levels and all that kind of shit, because that would take forever, right? Instead, what we're doing is we're building a series of mini games on top of a common layer, 3 common layers. The first layer being the character. So the character that you own is unique to you, and it is a bird, a rooster, or a hen that sort of builds over time. So that character can be taken across all these different mini games. The second part is the AI, which is probably the best part, the AI layer, which kind of goes across all of these mini games. And the third part, and last but not least, is the economy. And so those 3 parts are allowing us to build these sort of mini game experiences. And that's why we're able to launch this game quickly, because the first thing we're going to do is launch the cockpit fights almost immediately. Like the minute these birds see each other, they start to fight. They just have this, it's in their DNA basically to fight each other. And that's kind of how it starts.
No, that's super interesting. And, I see, they're building an audience and a community the same way, people care about, call it real life sports, football, soccer, et cetera. So, and brands, they advertise in those spaces or they sponsor people. Do you see that happening in Web3 gaming? Or, is someone going to sponsor one of the
Yep.
cocks, or are they going to sponsor, the octagon? Do you see that type of world? And
Yeah.
how do they, and if they do that, how do they do that the right way, like being relevant to the community and relevant to the project?
Well, think of it like this: we're creating this world where we're this beautiful octagon, which is based in Las Vegas in the year 2140, where the skyline is slightly different, but there's some similarities. Like the MGM Grand is still there, the big wheel is still there, but in the middle of Las Vegas is this beautiful octagon arena with screens around it, right? And we're watching professional fights happen, 24/7 essentially. And like if you're a brand like, for example, I don't know, KFC or like Popeyes, there's probably a relevant kind of chicken thing that we could do with them. There's like energy drinks. There's, depending on the audience that we're catering to, which is really just like this whole sort of wide fighting entertainment audience. There's a lot of brands that could come in and do it in a really relevant, futuristic kind of way. And so we're now sort of doing tongue-in-cheek branding in the game. We have we have this. If you look at our most recent cinematic that we put out, we have this sort of back alley going to the octagon. It's sort of the road to the octagon, and these two birds see each other and they start to fight. You can envision a world where like there's a Popeyes there, or like something in the future, and like maybe the chickens have an allergic reaction to it, like they fucking hate it, right? They're scared shitless of Popeyes or KFC. There's a lot of like really neat things that we could do there. But there's other, there's like apparel brands and things that could come into the space. We can do branding on the octagon. The other thing that we're doing is we're allowing creators to come in and create these octagons. So help us create it. So for example, right now we're doing Las Vegas and we're going to show local art and that sort of thing around the octagon, around the arena. We're going to let people show their NFTs. Especially like top tier artists, we'll let them do it for free. We're not going to ask for money. We just want them to be able to, participate in this world and make money on it over time, because some people might actually like their art and, or their music or whatever, and they'll be able to kind of contribute art to the game. But imagine if the next thing we do is we liberate another city, like, I don't know, what if we liberate, Mumbai, for example, right? And we drop a octagon right in the middle of, somewhere in Mumbai. We drop a octagon right there, and we drop like a small amount of birds, for example, that are all sort of like Indian theme, where Butter Chicken Singh is like the like the biggest like warrior or whatever, and we have local artists come in and sort of like contribute to that. This is the kind of thinking that we have in this game, and we're building this for the long term, and we're bringing people in from all over the world to participate in this. So yeah, so brands from all over the world can jump in various ways.
Yeah, and I'm sure they will, right? You see these brands getting involved with just buying a simple NFT. So, getting involved with something that's an actual game that then they can, live and participate in, I think becomes a no-brainer, for them. So it's super interesting. I want to get to a couple questions that we have in the audience right now. So again, if you do have a question in the audience, feel free to type it out. And we might even invite you up onto the stage. But so looks like Liam's asking a question. He goes, Raul, if you said you didn't spend that much money on marketing, how are you building your community, and what advice do you have for other games starting off on building community?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Look, we're building it organically. I think the fact that we have an established team, we have a team that we have familiarity with each other. We've either like David or I have hired people that have worked with us in the past, or that we're familiar with, that we've worked with, and so we're able to execute very quickly. We have people in the industry talking about us. We did some really great PR at the beginning, and we're creating amazing content. Like the story that we're creating is amazing. If you go to our Discord and just look at the lore, we're actually building a novel. It jumps from chapter to chapter, and it talks about It kind of talks about the history. It goes all the way back to like 1979 kind of thing, and all the way up to 2140 and beyond. It's such a cool, like when I think about building a game, it's not just about like a game with mechanics in it and like art. It's about everything is a creation to us. So to us, storytelling is an art. To us, the art that goes into the game is an art, and it has to be driven by humans, actual artists. And then we're using computer like engineering, like really great engineering and machine learning to sort of take away, as David says, the mind-numbing stuff that goes along with the creation of a game from an artist. So, for example, we have one of the best artists that I know. He's one of the best living artists that I know working on our team as the lead creative director. His name is Gear Duran. He's unbelievable. And so he's been doing art for decades. He does graffiti art. He can paint. He can sculpt. He can create, even do digital stuff. He's done 300-foot walls. He's done everything. And we want him to be able to take our vision and create whatever he wants, and do it in a way that like he's satisfied with the creation. And then we want to take that creation and take it down a pipeline so we can create a number of assets with it. We can rig it up and we can create a game-ready asset without him having to do that mind-numbing work. So we're using computers to assist in that type of work. Versus if a big studio, what they normally do is they hire like 200 people to do that kind of work, and you end up with a shitty product in the end that doesn't really connect. And so we're hiring a very capable team full of actual software engineers that can think about that sort of stuff. Right?
Yeah, I just want to share this. Jennifer goes, it's funny because, or it's just because you're having fun and everyone is interested in that attraction. So basically, you're attracting people through fun as opposed to advertising. So that's a good call out, Jennifer.
Yeah, and one other thing too, is it Liam who asked that question earlier about trying to build a community? One thing I would say is you'll notice a lot of these projects have like 200,000 people in their community. And they've done it in a way that's just like unnatural. They go into their Discord and they say, "Hey, invite 10 of your friends, and we'll add you to the to our whitelist." And then they just continue to sort of pump. It's a terrible word, but that's what they do. They pump up their kind of like demand for their NFTs, if you will. And then what they'll do is they encourage speculation the entire time. So all they're talking about is like when the NFT drop is. What it's going to be in the future with this promise of this crazy roadmap. And they're encouraging speculation and speculation and speculation. So you have like all these people in there who are going to buy in early, who are going to dump on the open market at some point, and they create a massive mess for everybody. Speculators are killing the NFT marketplace. That's the bottom line. It is happening. It's bad for artists. It's bad for everybody if they continue to encourage this type of behavior. So, to build a community, the key is to build a community organically and not invite people to, don't do these whitelist sort of collabs with other groups. You don't need it. If you're building a great game, if you're building really great depth, if you have a great team and you're telling a great story, it's going to come. It's going to happen naturally. You have to have a really great concept. And in our case, we have a great concept. We have an incredible team. And more than anything, we have the right motivations. Like our motivations are to build a fucking entertaining game that invites, millions of people around the world to come and play it. That's it, right? We're not here to say, whoa, we want to create a great NFT project. Like, no, that's not what we're doing.
Yeah, no, super good insights there. Scott is asking, hey, to what extent will third parties be able to expand on the game or the world or the assets?
Good question, and probably something I'm not able to answer yet. I will tell you that we are building the rails so that third parties can expand on the game and create assets. So we're building the rails and the tooling for you to be able to do that. Irreverent Labs is effectively like a deep technology company, and we're building deep, like really, really incredible technology. We're building AI technology. We're building this economic model and tools that we're building via the Trojan horse of a mecha cockfighting game. But we're going to take those tools that we're building and we're going to bring them back up to Irreverent Labs and make them available. Like we'll license them to other companies and that sort of thing to help build the space. So we are a very deep technology company that's building entertainment.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. You have, yeah, you're building all the core stuff to make this operate, but you're thinking about it holistically. I think a good question to end on is Motivational Daisy asks, how does one just go about entering into the game space? They're saying they're a novice. How would someone do that?
That's a very hard question. If you're a novice and you want to enter gaming, it's going to be very difficult unless you find co-founders that are gamers, and you find people that you surround yourself with people that have played games their entire lives, basically. Because as a gamer, you kind of know what to watch out for. You know what makes things fun. You know what gamers look for. And part of building a successful game is building a community of gamers. And if you can't do that authentically, you'll fail at it, I guess. That's probably the best answer I can give you. Find co-founders who know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Raul, as you know, whenever I interview, I always like to ask, what's a question that you have that you want to ask everybody that they should just be thinking about, or maybe you want them to answer in the thread here. But what's something that you want to, make sure that people think about as they either go about their day, or they think about gaming, or they think about NFTs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess you got to ask yourself, why are you interested in this space in the first place? Like, why are you here? And if the reason you're here is, like you're objectively curious, that's fine and that's great, right? If the reason you're here is because you want to make money, opportunistically, you're probably here as a speculator, and your time here is not going to be well spent, because you may make money temporarily, but eventually you will lose. And so my thought is that if you're here because you kind of like, you're curious about the space, that's great. If you're here because you want to play the game and you want to learn more about it, and you want to be there for the long term, I really think you're going to find a lot of joy, entertainment, and rewards for being part of this ecosystem. I guess you just got to ask yourself, why are you here, right? And figure out what your motivations are before you jump into this space. Yeah,
definitely. Well, Raul, what are some good ways that people can stay in contact with you, learn more about Irreverent Labs and the community? And then also, feel free to post that into the thread, or if there's someone from your team, please feel free to post links there in the thread so that people can easily get to it.
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter at Rahul Sood. So it's just my name, RAHULSOOD. You can find our game MechaFightClub on Twitter at MechaFightClub. And you should definitely register on www.mechafightclub.com, or www.mechafight.club. And you register there, join our Discord, and just start to participate in the community. Our Discord's pretty awesome. It's popping. And it's because, people are looking forward to the game. I think, I really think that this is going to be, just an incredible game. Oh, and by the way, I want to mention something. Did you know that like Axie Infinity is super popular in the Philippines, as an example, and it's really, really popular there, right? And it's popular. It's popular there, in a big way. They've created these guilds. I was shocked as to how many guilds have reached out to us. We've had over, I think, like 300 guilds now around the world in the last week reach out to us because we put out this forum to learn more about guilds. So they have these guilds that actually, many of them are actually good, and they kind of educate the public about the games and that sort of thing. They get people playing the games. But cockfighting is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the Philippines. Actual cockfighting, right? And it's weird because we didn't create this game because we thought, Axie's got a big market in there, so let's do a cockfighting game. Like, that's not why we did it. We did it because we thought it was hilarious. And by the way, it's an accident that cockfighting happens to be a big industry there. And if there's any industry that we want to take market share away from, it's the actual cockfighting industry. Like, we want to, because I don't like cruelty to animals, right? And so this game, I hope that the next generation sees this as an opportunity to own your whole, a flock of chickens and like fight them, and even eventually connect it to regulated wagering operations and that sort of thing, so they don't have to do it to real chickens.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, Raul, thanks so much for joining us. If you're listening, Ross put Raul's different handles on Twitter in the thread, as well as a link to the Discord. So make sure that you are, going there. And Raul, thanks so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So everybody, we're going to go ahead and now move to the tables. So we have about a 15-minute break before our next session, which is going to be on NFTs in the nonprofit sector. Web3 and NFTs are in nonprofits. So I want to invite everybody, when this session ends, there is a section where you'll see a bunch of tables. I want to invite you all to sit at the tables, and maybe I forgot to ask Raul, but maybe he can stay and talk at one of the tables for a little bit. But go ahead and go there, meet some folks, chat with them, connect, and yeah, head over to the lounge, and then we'll get started at 11:30 with the next session. So hope everybody's enjoying this. Thanks so much.